Jane Addams Hull House became a cornerstone in what would become known as the settlement house movement. During the late 19th century through the early 20th century, the settlement house movement transformed the practice of social work. What made this movement so revolutionary was its focus on the environmental context regarding social conditions rather than on the individual themselves. It is only right then to go over the environmental and historical context in which allowed this shift in perspective to take place. During the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution and mass urbanization led to a new poverty, where sanitation problems, pollution, hunger, and disease plagued the slums of the inner cities. These neighborhoods constituted the literal environment where settlement houses would be constructed. Additionally, many of the leaders who founded and worked at settlement houses in the early years were children during the Civil War, including Jane Addams. This was a time of great social change where new ideas could emerge. Immigrants coming to the US were left in precarious situations. They often came with only the clothes on their backs, settling for whatever work they could find. Cultural and language barriers made this group of people even more at risk of being exploited. Finally, a radical form of individualism exacerbated the negative impacts of industrialization, expansion, and immigration, creating a huge divide between the poor and the wealthy. So, the settlement house became a response to these social conditions. The model for US settlement houses was found in East End London, Toynbee Hall. Toynbee Hall was founded in 1884 and intended to create an atmosphere similar to that of the Oxford campus. In 1886, 2 years after the founding of Toynbee Hall, the Neighborhood Guild, which would be renamed to University Settlement, became the first US settlement house. Following Toynbee Hall's influence of creating an Oxford-type atmosphere, the settlement house worker was often middle class, well-educated, and largely Christian. They would move into these houses and immerse themselves amongst the community. Seminary students would visit and take residency at Toynbee Hall, coming back to the US with these new ideas. Jane Addams' story is not too different. Jane Addams, a middle-class seminary student herself, pursuing a career in medicine, took a hiatus from her education due to a spinal condition. She went to London, followed by consecutive visits to London, witnessing the poverty of East End and the impact and conceptual framework of Toynbee Hall. In 1889, Jane Addams partnered with Ellen Gates Starr and founded the Hull House in Chicago. They built upon the ideas of Toynbee Hall, working to meet the needs of the community. As Hull House raised more money, its capacity for action increased, initially aiding immigrants and providing kindergarten services to eventually offering adult classes and social clubs, housing a gymnasium and building playgrounds. They played an important role in creating child labor laws and building social welfare programs. The settlement house movement utilized micro, meso, and macro approaches to addressing the environmental conditions placed upon the poor communities.
Hull House was a significant step in the right direction for the community, and it created educational opportunities for the disadvantaged. Its major focus was on neighborhoods as a whole rather than selective services for specific individuals. Gaps between the social classes were another thing that Hull House helped close. People like Jane Addams and Ellen Gates Starr helped lower class citizens by offering them education, music and art classes, a public community kitchen, and a safe place to sleep. They also helped immigrants adjust to life in America and get out of poor living conditions. Many people came from tenements that were dirty, overcrowded, and had no heat or AC. Immigrants were offered financial assistance, food assistance, childcare, and vocational activities that could help them with daily living, such as sewing. Hull House even offered English and citizenship classes to become American citizens. In 1912, Addams and other Hull House residents sponsored legislation to abolish child labor, establish juvenile courts, limit the hours of working women, recognize labor unions, and ensure safe working conditions in factories. This all helped broaden social perspectives and create equality between all walks of life. There's still a settlement house today that is active and keeps the tradition alive. It's located in the Lower East Side in Manhattan. This was the original settlement house in the United States, and it's a safe haven where people of all ages and every walk of life can seek advice, assistance, and education. University Settlement is continuing strong and carried on what Hull House was unable to. Hull House sadly closed its doors in 2012 due to bankruptcy, although it is comforting to know that there are still places out there that carry on the tradition and integrity.
Looking forward in the social work profession, reforms can be made in the micro, meso, and macro levels of practice. When working with families and individuals, it will be important for social service centers to identify individual service needs and tailor services to meet the greatest unmet needs of the community or population it is serving in a culturally appropriate manner. According to Beverly Corin, when 81 centers were asked what the greatest unmet need of the population they serve was, she received 114 different answers. The most frequently cited unmet need, according to her study, were housing and employment services. A current gap in social work education is that of reinforcing the importance of community building and advocacy in university curriculum. The draw towards private practice and managed care may overshadow one of the core values of social work, social justice. Social workers should be part of community building, especially when local policies favor gentrification and corporate interests. Social workers should work with community members to ensure that the community has a clear voice in any urban renewal projects, which may result in the displacement of individuals, families, and small businesses. Strong collaboration is needed between non-governmental entities and the federal and local government. Having NGOs working with and in the community can foster a sense of empowerment. Those that are living in communities that are in need of services feel like they have strong allies and financial support from federal block grants. At this time, HUD allows for localities to make critical budgetary decisions and providing minimal support as needed. The most radical change that can be drawn from the settlement houses and Jane Addams is that of harm prevention through reduction of poverty by creating jobs that pay a living wage, universal education, and equal access to safe and affordable housing. While this is a reality in some European countries such as Germany and Norway, the United States will have to have a major reorientation of its economic system to make this a reality.